Hey everybody, welcome to Midas Letter Daily. Today is January the 19th. It's a Wednesday, hump day as they say. And just getting into the routine of doing this thing every day again. And so probably I'm going to be a little bit discombobulated, disconnected in my discourse until I get back into the groove of doing it every day and connecting my thinking brain to my speaking brain, which often are not quite connected. Anyways, up here in southern Ontario, we've just endured rather a 2 foot or plus snowstorm, half a meter for the metric minded. And so I got to spend the day yesterday with my Kubota equipment pushing a lot of snow around, and that was a lot of fun. Hard to do work when you've got all these toys around, and actually others might consider moving the snow around the work. However, for me, it is just a lot of fun. So yesterday I was going to do a show, but of course the snowmaking got in the way. I also spent an inordinate amount of time in the kitchen yesterday. I made beef bourguignon, I baked peasant bread, and I baked hermit cookies. And some might say, well, what is going on there? Spending half the day in the kitchen baking and cooking. Anyways, I think it was the snow brought out the hominess in me. And cookies turned out great. The bread is phenomenal. I don't think I'm ever going to buy bread again because this bread recipe is so simple. I got it off of TikTok. If you want to make it at home, look it up on TikTok. Just Google or search peasant bread on TikTok. Anyways, this show is not a cooking show. I'll have you know. So what's going on today? Markets were closed on Monday in the United States, thanks to Martin Luther King Day, and so a little less activity than normal. Markets were in a positive swoon yesterday, and I think we'll start the discussion as to why that was. This is the U.S. 10-year bond, and so this is what everybody's watching after Jerome Powell last week in his address to Congress in pursuit of a second term as Fed chairman. He basically has been transmitting, broadcasting, signaling, whatever cliche you want to use, that the Fed is going to raise rates 4 times in 2022. And at the same time, they have dialed back the stimulus and they plan to incrementally pull that back to nothing. And so this is the effect in the marketplace. Today, you can see here that the trend is downward. I imagine there's quite a bit of intervention going on in the marketplace on the part of the President's Working Group on Capital Markets, better known as the President's Working Group. Better known as, no, it doesn't exist. But whatever. This is, so interest rates have pulled back a bit after clocking in at almost 190 basis points. In fact, it did briefly touch 190 basis points. And so this is the effect that we're seeing in the market. So if we come back out here and switch to our main watch list, you can see that the bulls and the bears are in a bit of a tug of war today. The markets are currently right now showing red ever so slightly, but that's not really convincing because they've been green, they've been red, they've been green, they've been red. Obviously, there's a lot of intervention going on in the capital markets and the largest names, I believe, because this is, if we harken back to 2014 when then Fed Chairman Ben Bernanke announced that the end of stimulus was about to be undertaken and tapering was going to be the thing, markets crashed. And so the tapering was short-lived. In fact, it was reversed within 30 days. The Fed flip-flopped and said, no, actually, instead, we're going to amp up stimulus, and we're going to cut the interest rate by a further 25 basis points. And that has been the mode in which the Fed has been locked repeatedly, certainly since the onset of the pandemic, and more or less off and on since the end of the financial crisis, which, as I have been saying for over 10 years now, there was no end to the financial crisis. The systemic weakness that is underscored by the excess liquidity in the system as a result of the abundance of synthetic asset classes and the extreme amount of stimulus that has gone on since the onset of the financial crisis. None of that has really been dialed back. All that's happened is there's been an explosion in the variety of assets that money can find its way into. And that's the principal reason why cryptocurrencies are, in my view, permitted to continue to soak up a lot of that liquidity, is because it serves the Fed's interest in having that money find its way into alternative assets and stay away from real assets like commodities and real estate that essentially form the foundation of what we call inflation. So stimulus is essentially monetary inflation. Prices rising are the monetary inflation finding its way into price inflation or goods inflation. So real estate prices have been on a tear since the onset of stimulus in 2010-11, after the feeding frenzy that was the institutional Wall Street, sopping up all of the blocks of abandoned houses and turning them into rentals. This is what the Fed sees and doesn't really want to see persist. So the bottom line here is that Jerome Powell's announcement that they're going to dial back stimulus and increase rates is based on his mistaken assumption that the wealth effect that the Fed's policy has pursued is somehow able to carry itself without the ongoing capital injections, liquidity injections of the Fed. And that's simply not the case, because one thing is clear, and Wall Street has demonstrated that over the last 10 years, is that if you're going to take away the stimulus that keeps the junkie in full swing, then the junkie is going to throw a temper tantrum and demand that stimulus be reintroduced. And that is what we are now seeing, is the government thinks that it's going to pull the rug out from under Wall Street, and Wall Street thinks that it's going to pull the rug out from under the government. So we are in this situation where we have this tug of war going. The government is pulling out all the stops to try to drive markets higher in the face of its announced policy to reduce stimulus and increase rates. And Wall Street is trying to demonstrate to the Fed that if you reduce stimulus at the same time you increase rates, there is going to be a wholesale abandonment of the impetus in the stock market of buy. And we're seeing that fight play out right now in the major markets. Now let's take a look at the Bitcoin chart here. Bitcoin in USD is sort of demonstrating the same kind of effect. It's correlating to markets. And that is possibly a result of some of the interventionist policy of the Wizard of Oz behind the cloak in the world of the Fed. But the interest rates are the main factor. Interest rates don't really play a factor in the cryptocurrency world, nor does stimulus play a factor in the cryptocurrency world, at least not that much. Although increasingly well-heeled institutions are participating in cryptocurrencies, and the metaverse, that is essentially the crypto sort of infrastructure that underlies not just the cryptocurrencies, but also different factors like the metaverse. I guess the metaverse is just 3.0, Internet 3.0. Anyways, that's my rant as far as it's going to go today. I have a guest today, and it's Greg Engel, who you might remember from Organigram fame. Greg has left Organigram in April of this last year and is now a director of a company called Clairvoyant Therapeutics. And he's going to talk to us about Clairvoyant Therapeutics and its foray into the realm of alcohol abuse treatment using psilocybin. Now, interesting thing about psilocybin, if you're consuming psilocybin on a recreational basis, which technically we're not allowed to talk about or that's still not a thing because the forces of regulation have not yet approved recreational use of psilocybin. To me, I think it's amazing how much less mental health issues there would be in our society if recreational access to hallucinogenic compounds like psilocybin, like ayahuasca, like LSD were permitted, because essentially it expands the mind in no uncertain terms. And it's funny that cannabis was always said to be a pathway to harder drugs. And I am here in mind, body, and spirit to tell you that, yeah, cannabis was a pathway to more intense experiences in the hallucinogenic realm, which are now being acknowledged as therapeutic in a mental basis. And I can tell you from personal experience that the openness of the mind and the elasticity of the mind when it comes to accepting and absorbing and retaining complex concepts is enhanced by repeated use of hallucinogenic compounds. And there is a line over which I have stepped a number of times where if you make hallucinogens your be-all and end-all, then your ability to retain anything starts to diminish, because there's a appropriate use and an excessive use that becomes abuse. All that being said, I can tell you that if you're on mushrooms, you really forget about drinking because the psilocybin experience is so complete. So when Greg Engel tells me that they're using psilocybin to treat alcohol abuse issues, I think that it's going to be a slam dunk success. So I'll let him do the talking in an interview. And but note that I am asking to do a investment in the company because I believe in it. So here's Greg to talk about Clairvoyant. My next guest is a gentleman who almost needs no introduction. Greg Engel joins us. He's the director of Clairvoyant Therapeutics. Greg, welcome back.
Great to see you again, James.
You too, Greg. So tell us about Clairvoyant Therapeutics. What's the business? What's the plan?
Yeah, so we're still a privately held company focused on psychedelic medicine, primarily on addiction. So our initial phase 2 trial, which we expect to be approved imminently from Health Canada, which is currently under review with them, will be focused on alcohol use disorder. And there have been investigator-initiated trials that have shown very, very good results that are sustained with psilocybin, along with motivational enhanced therapy, psychotherapy, to really have an impact on reducing the number of heavy drinking days and the number of drinking days in total in that population. So we're really excited about it, and I think it's a great opportunity to advance the science on psilocybin in a more rigorous form than historically has been done.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you from personal experience that ingesting psilocybin makes you not want to drink. And, but not that, it's completely different, obviously, in the clinical environment where somebody has alcoholic use disorder. But I have been watching a lot of the research, and it seems like it's I wouldn't say at this point conclusive, but it's certainly indicative of an efficacy that sort of trumps everything else that's available. So how broadly do you think the application of psilocybin for alcohol use disorder is going to be? Is it going to be like 100% of the population?
No, I think if you look at, there's been some estimates. Prohibition Partners put out a report last September kind of looking at, what's the global impact in terms of society. And alcohol use disorder has $150 billion impact on society, right? And this is, and it used to be called alcoholism, but now called alcohol use disorder. And I think when you look at where psilocybin has a place, the current therapies are really not therapies to treat the condition. They're abstinence therapies, right? They're very much focused on preventing drinking on an ongoing basis, creating side effects or abnormal experiences for people if they do drink. Whereas psilocybin, along with the psychotherapy, is really focused on changing habits. And, one of the keys of psilocybin as a therapeutic treatment is that, again, very good study by Bogenschutz et al. That looked at, a 25 milligram dose with 2 cycles of treatment, really found that patients become more open, and through that psychotherapy and motivational enhanced therapy, along with the treatment in a controlled setting, really changes their habits. Right? I mean, this is alcohol use disorder is a long ingrained condition. So you're looking to not only have, it's not about the experience at the time, is can you have a lasting effect on the treatment? So really impressed, and we're really excited about the clinical study and eventually moving towards approving the drug not only in Canada but in Europe and the UK.
And is your focus currently just in Canada?
So our trial's is under review with Health Canada. We're submitting shortly in the EU as well. So the initial phase 2 trial, we are expect to have sites both within the EU and within Canada. And then when we move into phase 3 next year, we expect to add the UK as well. So, but it's really those markets that we're focused on in terms of the strategy where we see the greatest opportunity.
Right. Okay, then in terms of addressable global market, what is the sort of scope and scale?
Well, again, it's challenging to predict. I mean, if you look at the total number of people that utilize alcohol, we're estimating that if you're able to, on an annual basis, let's say 1% of the total population who uses alcohol have alcohol use disorder. That's a very, conservative number. If you're able to, garner 1 to 2% of that population, you're talking a drug therapy that has the potential for hundreds of millions of dollars per year, just at that very margin. So getting those people on the margin, and then over time it will expand. So, we're projecting certainly peak sales 3-4 years out in the hundreds of millions of dollars range. Wow,
fantastic. And so is there a go public strategy in place at this point or not yet?
We're still private. The company is actually founded by Damien Kettlewell, who you may recall from Blisco, longtime entrepreneur. And, I was really excited to join the board last year because I was approached, when I made a decision to leave Organigram, I was approached by a number of different psychedelic companies because my background prior to cannabis was in biotech and pharma and had experience starting a number of different biotech and pharma companies. And I was really excited about Clairvoyant's plans, taking a very rigorous short path clinical program. So, being able to jump into a kind of a late stage phase 2 trial at this point. So we want to get to the point, where we've proven ourselves or initially kind of gotten to that point before I go public, but not too far in the future. I think you'll see the company go public, but at this point we're remaining private.
Sure. At clinicaltrials.gov, which is where I sort of go to monitor what trials are underway around the world, there are currently over 80 trials involving psilocybin for a wide range of things, ranging from, treatment-resistant depression to alcohol use disorder. And so it strikes me that the landscape is quickly becoming crowded. And so from a competitive perspective, is there any concern on your part that there's a sort of a fuse lit under your butt to get there quickly?
No, it's a great question, James. So the majority of trials that are underway still are investigator-initiated trials. We're seeing that is where the focus is. Researchers have wanted access to various psychedelics, and it's not only psilocybin, but MDMA and LSD and ketamine, even though that's approved in some jurisdictions, being used as treatment. So for us as a company, the goal here is to, work on the product to get it to the point where regulatory submissions are possible. We're able to get approval, through Health Canada, through the EMEA in Europe and the UK health authorities. And, the goal in doing that is then you have a drug that can be reimbursed by private public insurers. And, a lot of the research, as I said, that's ongoing is really being done by, universities, investigator initiated. So it is a crowded market. There's lots of companies that are exploring the space. There's 3 different approaches happening. One is a drug development like clairvoyance. Another is a kind of a combination of clinic and kind of product development where, companies are looking to set up clinics for treatment. And the third is really developing new chemical entities where they're creating different forms of these products where they can, go into study. The majority of those are much further behind really in phase 1 studies because they're just testing out these new chemicals. So we're in that one bucket, and there's a limited number of companies that are focused in that area specifically.
Sure. So then are you using psilocybin in its natural form as opposed to isolating the compound, the active ingredient?
Yeah, we're working with a drug supplier that's been working with psilocybin for a long time for a synthetic psilocybin. Psilocybin, as you may know, from an active ingredient perspective, there's really only two active ingredients in magic mushrooms, which is the natural form, which is psilocybin and psilocin, and synthetic psilocybin is metabolized to psilocin. So you get both active ingredients in the process, and certainly, again, one of the keys to get to a drug approval process and go through the regulatory process is consistently being able to produce the drug in a pure form, and then B, when you market that product, that that it meets the parameters. And that's why we've made a choice on synthetic versus natural.
Right. Well, that's interesting. So then the current amount of cash that you have on hand how far is that going to take you, Mike? And the reason for my question is I'm wondering when is the next opportunity to make an investment?
No, it's a great question. So we've completed a seed financing round. We are just about to launch a Series A financing, potentially to raise another $7 million. And that would take us through completion of the phase 2 trial and into the initiation of the phase 3 trial. So that's we're just at that stage right now where we're looking for investors in the Series A financing. And, we're doing this in a very lean way. One of the key aspects of the structure, there's a small number of employees, there's lots of advisors or consultants like myself being on the board that are, bringing their added value, but also, the way we're working with the drug supplier and the way we're doing the clinical studies. And, part of the reason, for example, we chose alcohol use disorder, first of all, there's a large global unmet medical need, but we know in clinical studies, in studies that have been done there, your recruitment rate's very, very high. You mentioned treatment-resistant disorder, for example. I worked in mental health when I was in pharma, and so, for example, for average site, you recruit 0.3 patients per month in a depression study. With alcohol use disorder, you can recruit 4 to 5 times that many, so 1.3 to 1.5 patients per month. So your recruitment rate can be pretty quick. So your ability to get through the clinical program is accelerated versus many disorders. So,
interesting. All right, Greg. Well, we're going to leave it there for now. I'm going to follow you with great interest as usual. And by all means, please email me any sort of documentation around the financing. I'm very interested. And I'll look forward to having you back in due course. Thank you so much for your time today.
Great. Always great to see you, James. Thanks again.
Bye for now. Okay, so Clairvoyant Therapeutics is a private company still, and so therefore not trading. If you are an accredited investor, you can reach out to the company and ask to participate in the Series A round funding that Greg did mention in that interview. And we will follow that closely if we are participants in that financing. I have a suspicion we will be. In the meantime, let's take a quick look at the markets, hear what's going on. This is midday that I'm doing my show here. It's just about noon, lunchtime in the East. Dow Jones having suffered. This is all down since Jerome Powell testified to Congress that he was going to, in fact, continue with the 4 interest rate raises and the reduction in stimulus. NASDAQ looking beaten up here. The beneficiary of all this, gold. Here's gold futures. Gold looking stronger than ever before. As long as the Fed persists in its insistence to reduce interest or reduce stimulus and increase interest rates, gold should continue to outperform. A friend of mine's son has become an analyst at Canaccord Genuity, and he is a junior gold analyst. So I'm hoping to get him on the show to talk about junior golds. And in fact, I'm going to start looking for junior gold companies to cover because, oh my gosh, look at gold go. It warms the cockles in my heart to see that gold is trending higher while cryptocurrencies repeatedly suck or continuously suck hind tit here. China has completely outlawed Bitcoin, the trade in it or the mining of it. And there are an increasing number of companies that are examining the possibility of outlawing at least the mining of cryptocurrencies because they do consume such a great deal of electricity. And as the crypto universe expands, it only follows that the demand on electrical resources by cryptocurrency producers is only going to increase. And so it begs the question, does the world have enough room for all of these currencies? And should they all be allowed to consume the electrical resources? I think that governments are going to conclude increasingly that no, they should not. And I stand by my representation of now 3 years that I believe cryptocurrencies will be outlawed for legal tender in most countries within a couple of years, and that will coincide more or less with just as fast as the developed world's central banks roll out their central bank digital currencies. And then you will see governments start to limit the use of cryptocurrencies, and they will possibly remain an alternative asset class, but absent the right to be considered legal tender, they constitute nothing more or less than a risk. And I think that gold and silver are the real money, and long after cryptocurrencies have come and have gone, gold and silver will remain as the real standards against which all government-issued currencies as legal tender are measured. So we're starting to see that in gold today as a result of this. In other commodities, copper trending higher here, sort of at a new level, higher highs and higher lows, indicative of a new bull cycle for copper. I've got a tin company that I am going to become a shareholder of here quickly. This company has acquired a tin exploration project in Rondônia in Brazil, Rondônia being the tin province of Brazil. It's proximal to a producing tin property that is one of the largest tin producers. You think of tin, you think of tin cans. Cans aren't typically made of that much tin anymore, and tin is a critical ingredient in everything from solar panels to cell phones to computers. So tin is a commodity that I'm going to be following. But here, let's take a look at lumber, my favorite commodity to hate, because I am finding myself spending a lot of time with lumber lately. I've built myself a wood shop in my barn. I made a beautiful working table for my partner's fashion cutting business. And so spending more time in the timber realm. I'm trying to organize myself a Wood Miser LT70 sawmill because I've got so much wood on my own territory, and with the price of lumber rising, I think it's a good investment. Now, interesting that today the price of lumber is falling yesterday and today, and not sure why that is. Haven't really seen any headlines to suggest why that is, though. If the rising interest rates and the withdrawal of stimulus are going to have the effect of dampening the enthusiasm for real estate, which that only goes to show higher interest rates, higher mortgage rates, less real estate interest. And if it's going to actually catalyze some foreclosures or an increase in foreclosures in the real estate market as banks seek to refinance mortgages with higher rates, then it stands to reason that the lumber prices should fall a little bit lower over time if the housing market is going to diminish. That all remains to be seen in 2022. Let's go to the red list. So the red list is the list of companies that I actually am a participant in. Yeah, so Voxtur has been bumping along here since their last earnings announcement. And this is consistent with the pattern of the company. As has been stated many times by management, their breakout quarter is in their first real profitable quarter is expected to be Q1 2022, expected to be announced sometime in May of this year. And so certainly there's a new base being built here at just over $1 per share. My interest in the company is I have 1 million options at $1.15. So the company, if the share price goes up, I stand to make money. So therefore, everything I say in regards to Voxtur should be considered promotional or biased or conflicted. Therefore, I am not to be trusted. That being said, Voxtur has developed so much market share in the digital real estate space. I'm going to pull up another chart here. So Voxtur here has found a new level and is holding it. If we go to my watch list, its biggest competitor in the US is Doma Holdings. And Doma has found a new level too, and it's substantially lower. So while Doma decreases in value, Voxtur has found a new level, and Voxtur is increasing. There, if you go to United Wholesale Mortgage's website, United Wholesale Mortgage trades on the NYSE under the symbol UWM. It's the 6th largest mortgage broker in the United States. You can find a video on their website where there's a guy who works for United Wholesale Mortgage stating unequivocally that 70% of the appraisals done on United Wholesale Mortgage's website are done using the appraisal direct function, which is a service of Voxtur. So 70% of the appraisals done on United Wholesale Mortgage are using Voxtur's ANOW system. So this is just one example of the market share that Voxtur is carving out for itself in the US mortgage and housing industry. And digital Voxtur's suite of digital real estate tools is only getting bigger. And that's why we expect that the Q1 2022 to be the breakout quarter that will start to show in no uncertain terms that Voxtur is going to be amping up double-digit Q-on-Q revenue growth, ramping up margin growth, etc. over time. Again, I'm conflicted. I am an option holder in the company. Let's see. Let's go back to my red list because I'm pretty sure that's what is kind of interesting for you, the viewer. What is James buying? So here's a company that I think I have 120,000 shares in at a price of 25 cents, I think was my average buy-in. It's below 20 cents. I could sell it. I'm not selling it. Real Luck Group is in the esports space, or rather the online gaming space. They have digital online gaming casinos that they've just launched. And so I'm kind of curious to see where this is going to go. There are some companies, DraftKings, some bigger companies that are analogs to this that are trading at many multiples higher valuations. So I'm waiting to see if Luck can turn it around. Again, I own shares in this free and clear at 25 cents. I'm under the money now, but stand to make money if it goes higher. NuRAN here. Now, NuRAN I wanted to talk about. We are a service provider to NuRAN. We are under contract to provide exposure to the company. We do this for an option. We've been paid a total of $50,000 in cash to underwrite the cost of content production. And the news that I wanted to talk about here is the company announced that it was basically doing $3 million a month in revenue. And so they're on a run rate in 2022 for $36 million for the year in run rate revenue. They're exceeding their expectations and projections every time they launch a new site. Some of you have written in and said that, wait a sec, how can you say they've got 5,000 sites? Well, they've already disclosed in their website that they've got 5,000 sites and that they're targeting 10,000 sites across Africa and South America. So that's all in the documentation. You just got to dig around to find it. Certainly, the announcement that they've achieved $3 million in monthly or in annual $3 million a month in sales in revenue is indicative that they are in fact achieving their stated goals. And so I draw your attention to that press release. And I think NuRAN is going to continue to knock it out of the park here. So we're going to continue to participate in NuRAN. And I think that for risk-tolerant investors, it makes an excellent opportunity in 2022. So GMG, Graphene Manufacturing Group, this is also a company that I am invested in. It's really fallen out of bed here. They asked me to submit a proposal to provide them with some of our financial communication services. So they haven't signed up yet, but I am conflicted because I am a shareholder from 25 cents. And yes, I have been selling and doing very well. Thank you very much. But I still hold, I don't know, I think 20,000 shares, 16,000 shares, somewhere in there. And I am a buyer and a seller. I will be buying and selling, but so I am conflicted, and I may soon become a service provider to the company. That being said, Graphene Manufacturing Group is selling off in an absence of news, and I expect that there is going to be some news coming at some point this month, but I haven't heard anything yet, so we'll keep watching that. Everything else I'm following right now is private. There's going to be some investment opportunities in the direct lithium extraction space. There's one company I'm negotiating a position with. There is the tin project that I mentioned in Brazil. That is a tin tantalum deposit that is being developed into a mine. It also has rare earth element values that we're expecting back from the lab imminently. I will be featuring that investment and many others in 2022. There's my story for today. We're going to call it there. That's my discourse, my diatribe. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your Wednesday. Tomorrow's Thursday. Superhead Molesky will be here, and we'll have a full show for you. Thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.